Hi everybody, welcome to Raising Vibrations. So today's video, I'm going to be talking to you about the full moon in Aquarius, sharing some of my thoughts and insights around the current astrological configuration. And hopefully me and you can walk away from this video with a deeper understanding of how to navigate reality moving forward, at least from the astrological point of view. So I bet many of you are starting to feel or have already felt the tremors of this Sun square Uranus aspect, and Mercury conjuncting the Sun at the moment, also in retrograde, I suspect, has been making us feel that on an intellectual level as well. So, to me, that's a very big part of this full moon, and I think that there are other aspects as well, like the Aries, the Chiron in Aries, the North Node in Aries configuration that I've been talking about for a long period of time. That's consistently shaping the underlying tremors that we're experiencing, right? And I'll get more into this and I'll be more clear about what I'm talking about when we look at the chart itself. But that's the overall sort of sense, or the priority at least, that I see in the chart at the moment. So let's actually jump into that and take a look at what it is that's actually taking place. Okay, so here's the chart of the full moon. And just to kind of point out some things over here, you've got the moon sitting at 27 degrees of Aquarius, right in opposition to the sun at 27 of Leo. And then there's the Mercury retrograde at 26 degrees in Leo, right? That's right on top of that sun sign over there. Can you guys see it? So that opposition's playing out a lot. And of course, the T-square, so the square, which is the red lines, being made to Uranus, which is sitting there in Taurus at 27 degrees. Can you see it there? So that configuration between Moon, Sun, Mercury, and Uranus tells us a tremendous amount, or a lot of information about what's going on here. And then you can also see the Jupiter-Mars square. So Jupiter-Mars sitting in Gemini, squaring Venus. Sorry, not Jupiter-Mars square, but Mars-Venus square. Mars-Venus square. There, Venus in Virgo, Mars Gemini, Mercury, and Jupiter there in Gemini as well. So these two squares are pretty powerful, and they're telling us a lot of information. The Saturn retrograde, I think, is also something to consider, not because of the fact that it's in a retrograde form and there's something big. It's more in the sense that when a planet goes retrograde, there's a priority A, especially when you're looking at evolutionary astrology, a priority on understanding the function of Uranus. So if you want to understand Saturn retrograde better and how it's playing out, look to the location of Uranus in the chart to give you an idea of what type of energy is present when Saturn is in a retrograde form. It's a bit too technical to explain as to why that's the case, but I think I have some videos on my channel that do explain that, maybe even a Uranus video. I'll see if I can find it and post it in the comment section. So that's that. I'll address that as well in terms of the Saturn retrograde and the significance of Uranus, because again, Uranus being very important on this full moon, and Uranus being a player that you need to look at, a constellation that, or a planetary system that you need to look at when Saturn's retrograde, there is a correlation. Okay, so lots of details over there and things to remember at the time. I did mention the North Node and Chiron and Aries being significant, but that's for a later synthesis. Okay, so what are my impressions on the moon oppose the sun Leo Aquarius dynamic, and then of course the Mercury retrograde on top of it. Now, I think it's important for me to go all the way back to the beginning of this year, sort of February time. And I did a series of videos where I talked about the importance and significance of the Venus conjunction to Pluto, the Mars conjunction to Pluto, and this happening in Aquarius, okay? Because the Mars-Venus conjunction that happened in Aquarius is significant because that was the beginning of a cycle between these two systems. So as these planetary systems move along the zodiac, as you can see, Mars is now in Gemini, Venus is in Virgo, you are still needing to understand the meaning of those symbols where they are today in relation to the original conjunction. So if the original conjunction was in the sign of Aquarius, and that the seed of the cycle was embedded in an Aquarius energy, then the rest of the cycle will carry the essence of this Uranian energy with it. So for me, it's really important to understand that, and for us to understand that if we are to interpret the Venus-Mars conjunction, Venus-Mars planetary aspects, like in now the square, there's an underlying correlation or connection that you need to make to the Aquarius energy. Okay, so I hope that's clear. So in the context of this Venus-Mars square, firstly, it's a square that implies the necessity for decentralization, okay, to break things apart. So the fundamental nature of the square itself is something of breaking things apart and wanting to establish and do new patterns, okay? So that's the nature of the energy at the moment. For those of you that study evolutionary astrology, the reason why I'm talking about decentralization is because the origin of the cycle is an Aquarius signature. So there's an underlying essence of wanting to break things apart. Okay, want to grow beyond the definitions. So that's the framework. That's the baseline of this system between Venus and Mars. And now, when you look at the current aspect, the current, as in where it is today, the current aspect between Mars and Venus, we are dealing with what is called an opening square. Okay. And this opening square, or crisis in action, is where the energy is at a point where it says, okay, I want to break free. I want to do these things. I've come to a point now where I want to maybe take some action in what it is that I want to grow beyond. Okay. So the baseline energy between Mars and Venus at the moment is a combination of the prompting to want to free and grow beyond current limitations or current definitions, and then the desire now to say, well, how can I implement something new? How can I put something new into play? I haven't tried it before, but I'm ready to explore new options. I'm ready to action an idea that I've been sort of gestating on, right? That I've been thinking about, that I've been collecting in some information on, and I'm considering it as a really important value, and I want to now take action on that value or take action on that that insight. So the first layer of understanding regarding these transits is that deeply held within our own sort of perspective at the moment, for most of you, you're probably feeling or have noticed, if you've been moving along these energies, a desire to want to take action on a new perspective or a new point of view, or to take action on a new series of choices that you want to make within your life that grows beyond current limitations that you've been held bound by. Okay. So you might say, well, up until now, I've always thought that I need to eat food this way. And then over the last couple of months, you've kind of challenged that or noticed there's new information coming into your field of view that has challenged that idea. And you've said to yourself, well, actually, I want to choose to eat differently. This is the time where you're actually going to start implementing that energy. So that the current wave of energy right now is to actually take that revelation, insight, the challenge perspective, and move ahead with it. Okay. And you'll come up against some natural resistance with this opening square between Venus and Mars. And I encourage you to just take it like literally as gracefully as possible, because when we try something new for the first time, or when we set out to establish new habits or new patterns, oftentimes we can meet an experience that makes us feel a little bit sort of uncertain. And so the idea here, that's why it's called a crisis in action, is to not get discouraged at the potential resistance you might feel, or the lack of positive feedback you get from your choice because it didn't work out the way you wanted to, or to just not get discouraged by it. Say, okay, cool. All right, so I tried this out. This is how it worked. Take a step back, reflect, and then move ahead again. Okay? So that's my advice over here with this opening square, is to, like, again, understand that you have challenged pre-existing definitions within yourself. You've considered that there's a new way of wanting to be, and now you want to take action on that. And when you take action on that, don't get discouraged when the idea of how it might seem to you versus what it might actually be for you doesn't work out completely. Just evaluate and then go forward again. Okay. So that's like the baseline energy of this chart. That's the square between these two. Now, Mercury retrograde squaring Uranus as well as the Sun is the sort of overlay on this deeper energy pattern that is present at the moment. So the deeper energy pattern is the Mars-Venus opening square that ties back all the way to the original conjunction of Pluto, which set the intention for a decentralization, a breaking apart, okay, to challenge pre-existing ideas and definitions that you might have within yourself or limitations, and to ask that question: is this really true for me? Okay, so that's the pattern there. So we've arrived at a point now where we're gonna take action on that. Okay, this full moon itself is highlighting the absolute significance, all right, and giving meaning to the change in direction that you are inspired to want to go. In other words, in order for you to actually have any motivation or any sense of discipline or commitment to a new choice, you need to actually give it life. You need to give it form. You need to give it something that actually has meaning. So on top of this, you are also at the same time exploring the underlying meaning as to why this actually is a significant change for you within your life. Okay? And the reason why I say it has to have meaning is because the Aquarius Leo axis is where we breathe fire into something that allows it to come alive. Okay? And a very clear example of this would be an animation. If you notice, if you've ever watched an animation without any voice, what it really is, and I mean this can be the same for in reality as well with like actors, but if you think of an animation, right, this is created forms of I'm just trying to think, like it's cartoons. Let's just call it that, right? It's a cartoon. It's something that's digitally created, and it only takes on a life of its own when you get voice actors involved. So the animation itself is a very Aquarius thing in the sense that it exists there. You can objectively see it, but you don't feel the life in it until the human essence comes into communion or into connection with it, right? So voice actors will create the personality or bring the personality to the artistic expression of whatever's been drawn. Okay, that's the Leo piece. So the Leo Aquarius piece is that dynamic relationship between the form and the fire and meaning and the presence that is being given. So this axis over here, in my eyes, that is related to this Venus Mars square is the meaning and the fire that you breathe into a new habit. So the question is, well, why is this an important new habit to you? What is the actual correlation between this new set of choices and actions that you want to make in this life? What is it breathing into your life? What are you bringing fresh into your life? Okay. And how does that squaring Uranus speak deeply to your unique understanding of yourself or your uniqueness? So, for instance, we all have different storylines that we live through, right? This is our path that we're walking on as human beings, right? We have an emotional relationship to the meaning of our lives, hopefully. For most of us, I think like the world is definitely going through a crisis of that at the moment. That's the kind of Neptune through Pisces dynamic. But the emotional story, the journey that you're on will be a representation of the challenges and the wins and the experiences that you go through. Well, we're at a point now regarding these planetary systems where we're like really challenging and breaking down pre-existing perspectives and ideas and points of views. This is the Jupiter-Mars conjunction in Gemini. And as we decentralize them, as we say, is this possible? Like, this is how the world said we should be, or this is how life was up until certain points in time. And I now have challenged that. And actually, we can grow beyond this. That's the essence. So what is that unique growing point for you? What is that unique growth edge for you? What is unique to you that you are breaking down within yourself and then regrowing in an even stronger and more healthier and more sort of authentic way, right? So this square between the sun and the moon are luminaries. So what the sun and moon do is go, this is the most conscious thing that you're paying attention to. Okay. It's like, here it is. So the planetary system, the planetary energy will be sort of there in the background, and you might pick up on, you might not. But when you have a new and full moon, it brings it into focus, right? So this opposition between the sun and the moon in the signs of Aquarius Leo is bringing into focus this dynamic tension of wanting to break free, and or not wanting to, but the desire, the impulse to want to decentralize pre-existing structures and grow beyond it. It's bringing that into focus now, and you can see the synchronicity between the exact square between Venus and Mars at the moment and the conjunction with Jupiter. And then this new moon coming in, and exactly, I mean, it's, look at it, sun moon 27 degrees, squaring Uranus 27 degrees. And then if you look there, you've got Mars at 19, Venus at 18, Jupiter at 17 degrees, right? So that energy is coming so into focus. It's like, here it is. So the square again, this Mars, so this moon sun square to Uranus, this is the very much this individuation process, like really bringing color to what it is that actually is real and meaningful for you. And then running parallel to that is the consistent fading away of that which no longer has meaning or life in it, right? So it's simultaneous. It's like you're giving meaning to something and you're breathing fire into this while at the same time withdrawing the meaning of it. So you're becoming more alive in one area and more detached in another area, right? That's the thing. And so the Uranus element, and this is kind of advanced astrology over here. So I'm going to try to make it as comprehensible as possible. I'm going to attempt. The Uranus signature is it's a deeper layer. Okay, so what I'm talking about is like conscious energetic impulses that we can pay attention to. And oh yeah, I noticed that I'm wanting to do this differently, or I notice that this is becoming boring to me, or this is no longer working for me, and I want to challenge this, or I want to go past, an edge that I feel limited by. But the Uranus energy right beneath it is almost like it's an impulse that doesn't have any concept yet. That is just, it's like it doesn't have any concept. It's just an energy force moving up. And that energy force itself that's moving up is then creating and animating the more personal planets like the Mars, Venus, Jupiter energy. And so what is the Uranus in Taurus dynamic? Well, it's fundamentally speaking to the collective's awakening of not only our own relationship to our own senses and our own body and our own connection to Earth, but it is also opening us up to where we have become, in a sense, complacent, or we have just taken things for granted, or we've just left things as they are. Taurus is very much about like, let's just keep it the way that it is because there's nothing wrong with it. So why challenge it? It's the polarity point of Taurus is Scorpio. So for most of you that have got lots of Taurus planets, you'll often resonate with what I'm about to say, which is the rug being pulled under your feet. This is constant thing. I'm just going around my day, and then all of a sudden the rug just gets pulled under my feet, and I'm challenged with this, like, why is everything all in disturbance for me? It's because if you remained passive and just in a bubble of everything's comfortable and I don't need to grow, then that's exactly what happens. You create the frog in the well syndrome, where you just look up and you think that the entire world is just what you see, but in actual fact, there's so much more. But you never are challenging those frames of reality because those frames of reality have never been challenged. So the Uranus energy over here is creating this kind of electric shuddering impulse to destabilize those frames of perspective in order for you to question whether or not this is actually how you want to live. Because it's been so deeply buried in your psyche and in your way of being that you never challenge it. Because why would we as human beings want to challenge our frames of reality? That's disturbing. That's distortion. That's chaos. That's not order, right? And so therefore, that's bad. And a lot of the time, there is an absolute necessity for Uranus energy to show up within our lives to challenge and shake up the frames in order for us to seek out innovative ways of actually existing and being. So, part of this energy is actually encouraging a perspective, a healthy dose of innovation, which can be very challenging for people that require an absolute sort of need for order. And any sort of threatening of these frames of stability can be disturbing. And I get that. The other way around, a lot of people that live more in Uranian states will often find order as something that is disturbing to them. So that's the consistent challenge between Uranus and Saturn. But either way, Uranus is sitting there at 27 degrees. It's making contact to the luminaries, and Uranus is saying, you know, innovate your frames of perspective while at the same time navigating gracefully the rattling of your frames of reality so that you could see beyond what has just become the norm, right? It's very Uranian words. Like, this has become the norm, and it needs to be shaken up in order for us to reinvent things so that we stay in with the times, right? Something that was, in the 1920s, for instance, many frames of reality have become outdated or redundant in the world that we live in today. And so just the contrast between those two different times of reality is an illustration of what I'm trying to say here. So there's a necessity for innovation, an innovative perspective. There's a necessity for questioning and recognizing what frames of reality can be reimagined, right? And the connection with your instincts that are asking you, or not even asking you, but prompting you to be curious about where things that are being shaken up, where you can actually reorder stuff. And for most of you, you're probably aware of where there is that tension within your life, A, and B, where you want to actually come into a new growth pattern. So this is a time where there's a great opportunity for setting an intention for new habits and actioning those habits and being committed to those habits and writing down those habits and saying, this is a new way I want to be in. So you kind of give energy, vitality, and fire to that and let it grow in a way that deeply nourishes your life, ultimately. Okay? The last thing that I'll talk about is the connection between the Saturn retrograde and the Uranus. And earlier I talked to you about the binary between the meaning of things and then the sort of progressive decaying or fading away of a way of being that no longer represents your true self or your true authenticity or where you currently are in your emotional journey. And the Saturn, again, in Pisces, is that consistent reminder that there is a binary of decay of an old order and the emergence of a new pattern, or the potential for a new pattern to be reimagined. So this retrograde Saturn speaks to a period of figuring out and clearing out and becoming very sober around what is actually fading away and what is not meaningful for you anymore, and starting to reimagine what could be potentially meaningful and real for you as you move forward. Because when Neptune hits Aries and Saturn hits Aries, this is an entirely new evolutionary cycle that will have a completely different frequency. And so much of what you're developing right now and what I'm developing internally and emotionally for myself right now and what the world is reordering itself around will become more concrete in my eyes when Saturn and Neptune move into Aries. So yeah, very exciting stuff and very fascinating stuff. I am putting my feelers and attention back into the collective pulse at the moment. I've withdrawn quite a lot recently because I've needed to address my own Pluto square at the moment. And I've also we ran the first Saturn workshop this last 2 weeks, which has been absolutely amazing. I've loved doing it. And I think we've got 2 more, and we'll see. Maybe we do it again, and I will let you guys know if that's the case. What else did I want to say? Yeah, so I'm putting my head back into the kind of collective energy at the moment. I've got a few ideas for some videos that I'd like to talk about. One of them particularly is the one around this Neptune decay dynamic, and particularly trying to navigate what happens when planets move through Pisces. And oftentimes, and I'll just kind of give a snippet over here, oftentimes when planets move through Pisces, there is an important understanding between to understand the what happens when uh, the sort of order of something, right? So the order of a kingdom. Let's say, just as an example, right? There's a kingdom, it's all stable, there's peace, and then say the king and queen die, and there's a transition period between the new old order and the new order, and in that space over there, there's lack of structure, there's lack of direction, there's all the sort of shadows start to creep out and into the light. So this is a period of time where there's a tremendous amount of power grabs. There's a tremendous amount of opportunities that will, uh, things will come out the woodwork, as it were, that have been deeply repressed. And oftentimes it can flood our senses with a tremendous amount of confusion, chaos, disorder, and disillusionment naturally comes out of it as well, plus many other things. But this is a really fascinating topic because I can point to many situations in the world right now where you can clearly see that as the sort of order is changing within our reality, and the myths are changing, and the meanings changing, and the patterns of reality are changing, and what is expected and what is right and what is wrong, the whole entire moral compass is being deeply it's going through exactly that, a change. And in that space over there, there's a tremendous sense of lostness, because what was once the place that you would go to say this is what's real has become a little bit sort of ambiguous and distorted. And so what naturally comes out of that is a kind of amplification of psychological biases. In other words, we project into reality our own sort of dispositions, or what information we've taken in, and when we project on over there, we start to reveal our own psychological biases, of course, but also our unique wants and desires, because again, it's our own projections. And when you put like a lot of people in a pot doing the same thing, the recipe becomes very sort of blurred and confusing. And so these are the effects of what happens when planets move through Pisces. Cool. Okay, so I'll be talking about that. I just want to collect some more information so I can kind of point it out and say, here's an example for us to see it more clearly. Other than that, guys, have an amazing week. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. And as I said, for me and you to get some insight from it. And as always, let me know what you thought in the comments section. One thing that I actually did want to let you know, by the way, I was told by one of the subscribers that there is a person that has mimicked or hacked or duplicated my account. And so they're posting under my name random nonsense. So if you do receive a message from me that says something like God and Jesus and this type of stuff is all one with you, understand that this is a bot. This is not actually me. And I'm working towards seeing if I can get kind of like a check mark on my account so that if you do receive a message from me, it will be validated as me actually talking to you rather than a bot that's responding. So if you do get those messages, please discard them. Yeah. All right, guys. Bye-bye.